Welcome to the Hotelligence Podcast, your strategic vantage point on the changing landscape of hotel safety. Hosted by Jim Kortz, a retired FBI DHS investigator, and Don Carr, a former frontline security owner-operator with years of first-hand incident response experience on hotel properties. Every episode brings you closer to understanding the full picture and what the future may hold. Let's begin.
Thank you for joining us on episode 7 of the Hotelligence Podcast. The myth of hotel safety and why safe isn't the default. I'm Don. I spent years responding to incidents on hotel properties. And one of the biggest disconnects I saw was between how safety is perceived and how these environments actually function. From the outside, hotels look safe. They feel controlled. But the reality underneath that surface is very different.
I'm Jim, retired federal agent. Today, we're unpacking one of the most common assumptions in hospitality, the idea that hotels are inherently safe environments. Safe by default, safe because they're clean, well-lit, professionally staffed, and branded.
What we're going to talk about today is why that assumption exists and why it doesn't hold up operationally.
Hotels are not inherently safe or unsafe. They're neutral environments by design.
Indeed, Jim. And guests often equate how a space looks with how safe it is. A polished lobby, friendly staff, and good lighting create reassurance. Those signals matter for comfort, but they don't tell you how a space actually operates.
Yeah, and those visual cues feel protective, but they're not the same thing as operational awareness. A space can look controlled and still contain meaningful blind spots. Appearance communicates order, not continuity.
And that's where the confusion begins. Safe looking feels like safe, even when the systems underneath are neutral.
So hotels are designed for access, intentionally open environments, right? There's high turnover, a constant flow of unfamiliar people, and minimal friction at entry points. Guests come and go at all hours.
That isn't a flaw, it's the business model. Hospitality depends on access, but access and safety exist in tension. So the more accessible a space is, the less controlled it becomes.
And hotels are optimized for movement, not restriction.
And there's also a cultural layer here. Staff are trained first and foremost to deliver service. Be welcoming, avoid assumptions, de-escalate. Minimize confrontation whenever possible.
And that culture is intentional. It creates consistency and trust for the guests. But it also means that staff aren't positioned to question intent or escalate early without clear cause.
And hospitality culture isn't built around scrutiny. It's built around courtesy. So let's talk about why cameras shape perception more than awareness. Because they're often treated as proof that a space is safe. But cameras don't manage behavior. They document environments.
And let's be honest, most footage is reviewed only after something has already happened. And much of it probably never gets reviewed at all. Cameras contribute more to perception than to real-time understanding.
Indeed. They make the spaces feel monitored even when no one is actively watching. Privacy is foundational to hospitality. Guests expect not to be questioned or scrutinized. That expectation shapes how staff interact with people in the space.
Staff are often unsure where observation ends and intrusion begins. So the default becomes non-engagement unless there's a clear reason to step in.
And that protects the guest experience. It also creates room for misuse inside otherwise comfortable environments. And that brings us to the liability paradox. Here's the tension hotels live with every day. The more a hotel presents itself as providing safety, the more responsibility it assumes.
And claims of protection create expectations. And unmet expectations become liability. So many hotels intentionally pull back from making those claims.
And that pullback is not indifference. It's risk management.
From the outside, though, it can look like inaction.
It can. And when people believe an environment is safe, they behave differently. They take fewer precautions. They rely more on the space than their own awareness.
They assume someone else is paying attention, and that assumption changes how people move through the environment.
Comfort and exposure can exist at the same time, in the same space.
So what does neutrality allow? When a space feels safe, scrutiny naturally drops. Attention becomes intermittent instead of continuous.
Indeed, Jim. And without that sustained attention, patterns don't accumulate, and those observations remain isolated.
Nothing about that is intentional.
It's simply what happens when environments are designed to remain neutral rather than intervening by default. So in closing, hotels are not unsafe by default. They're neutral by design. And that neutrality serves guests and operations extremely well.
It also explains why comfort and exposure can exist in the same space at the same time.
Well said, Jim. That safety isn't built into hospitality. It's layered on intentionally. In the next episode, we'll talk about what can happen when capability outpaces governance. And remember, we're in this together.
Together, we make hospitality stronger.
We publish a short, written insider briefing alongside each episode. It goes out on Wednesdays when the episode drops. If that's useful, the link is in the show notes.
Thank you for joining the Hotelligence Podcast, where experience informs smarter, safer hotel operations and prepares you for what comes next. Stay informed, stay confident, and stay connected. As the conversation evolves, Jim Cords and Don Carr will highlight developments that help hotels strengthen their approach to safety and risk management. See you next episode.